Imperfect Parenting, our
We're back.
podcast. We're having fun. What's really fun is when Ben's excited about the meme. When he's excited about the meme, then I introduce.
This
That's
one's
how
funny
this works.
too. Ashley's like, they're all funny.
Yes.
It's true.
But that's kind of how this works. Is the ones that he's most excited about it, I will open up the podcast. That's your cue, just so
Okay.
you know.
I'm not going to deny it. This one, I'm excited because it looks like a little dad moment.
Yes, I would
So
say those are dad
dads-
things
This one's out for you. This one's
for you.
out for you. Yep. Talking's hard sometimes, okay? This one's out for you, dads. This one goes out for you. I don't know. Whatever. Here we go. Here's the meme. It is looks like a table. I'm going to guess a card table. The child went and found a sheet and put it over this.
I'm gonna guess the parent did that, but yeah.
It's my story.
I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
This is my story.
Your fictional story that you're making up right now for this meme. All right, back to you. For you, their dads.
Thanks, Bob. All right. Let me get through the meme. So, you sticking out from underneath the blanket, and it looks like a fort. Where the dad, most of his body, his torso is probably under the blanket. The rest is sticking out. Here's what it says. When a 3-year-old asks you to get in her tent, you get in the tent. And it's a table with a blanket over it that's not covering much at all. But it's just adorable. Because I remember these moments with my kids. I remember this moment as a child with my dad. You climb in and think, I have made the coolest tent. And the dad's like, yep, it covers my chest and head. That's it. It's so sweet.
I think we made time where we put the fan in front of the blanket, and we all sat on the edges of the blanket with the kids. Do you remember that?
Not yet.
I think we were in I don't remember what house we were in, but maybe it was just Lincoln that we did it with, but it was basically the fan blew it up like a parachute underneath it. But
many wild forts with these kids.
Yes, there's been lots. I think the most epic fort of all forts that have happened.
Here we go.
Was
this is important on the podcast.
Okay. It was Lincoln's
COVID birthday. I
8
forget what number.
It's like
8,
something like that. I'm like, how old is he now? Anyways, it was April and it was 2020. So in true COVID fashion, we weren't really sure if we were afraid of our neighbor or not, because we weren't really sure. You didn't have cooties last week, but do you have them this week? But, for safety's sake, we'll just kind of look at each other from a distance. So we didn't have a birthday party. Again, we weren't really sure what was going on in the world. But I did a scavenger hunt for Lincoln, and we dropped off gifts at all his friends' houses, and then we went and picked them up. And then he got a goldfish.
The sheriff came.
What?
And the sheriff came.
It scared him.
We had like 6 cars come down a long driveway.
Terrified
with
him.
their sirens on.
Yes. The neighbors thought that we were
through their
a drug bust. That was also the funny part.
That's true. In the sound system saying, "Happy birthday, Lincoln."
Yeah, but we were a drug bust.
Yeah.
Because we had a COVID shed that we had delivered or something like
Shed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The she shed.
I heard something else.
Oh, no. And then Winston, our big guardian dog.
Yes.
So they thought we were like running drugs or something. No,
The sheriff's here.
we were not. But that morning and the night before, I think your friend and you built a wooden frame in the garage that was 2 stories. And then you nailed cardboard boxes. So it looked like a cardboard box fort that had 2 levels, and they slept in the upper level. Like, it was legit, guys. That was the fort that you made in the garage in birthday that year.
I challenge dads who have done this tent with a little girl to send me a fort better than that one.
Okay. We need to get some video. I didn't prepare for this moment because I didn't think about this story, but I do have some photos of him walking out to it. Anyways, but
all right,
it was great.
That's a fun little trip down
memory lane.
We
did want to talk about the sibling relationships a bit. We talked about, it was kind of guiding your kids through confrontation, and we got talking about like what kind of confrontation do our kids run into that's difficult, that's hard, that puts strain on our relationship as a family, and on really that sibling relationship is probably the most consistent place where there's constant conflict that shows up. And we get a lot of questions around that. But I also think that a lot of people don't know what to do with this because in one sense, the world says, oh, it's normal. You don't like each other. You don't have anything in common, so you just fight. I just don't know that I can settle for that's the only option. Yeah. And, you know, I would say that my brother, there's a big gap between us growing up. And we had our, what feels like sibling differences and irritations and this and that. But we didn't have like full on fights, crazy situations. So we fought here and there. And I would say Levi and Taylor probably got more physical than I did with the boys. But overall, for the most part, I feel like my parents tried to do a good job of, there was value for our relationships. But there was lots of room where that wasn't as much the priority, where I think you and I have done a really good job of really pushing on that with our kids as this is a really important relationship. This is really important to us. This is something we want you to, you're different. That's fine. Mm-hmm. And you may drive each other crazy sometimes in your differences or need something, but you being rude and disrespectful and us just kind of like.
Just enduring.
Yeah. We didn't want that. And so we worked really hard with our kids and had a lot of victory in this. And, you know, what's fun is we have a new season where our oldest is gone and it's now the younger two, which they've kind of gone in waves of the younger two were really, really close. And then the older two were really close. And the older two were really close. So I would say Addie and Delaney are similar seasons of life and interests, but Lincoln's now closer to Addie in similar interests like youth group and different things that they're doing. So they're kind of becoming friends again, but they're also very different. Mm-hmm. So then they rub each other the wrong way. So there's something that goes on. But the level of respect that we require from our kids towards each other matters. Introducing the Mindset Tapestry, a game-changing way to boost your child's confidence and positivity. It's self-affirming mirror talk for kids, blending the affirmation tags and caregiver cards. It's easy to use and full of love. It strengthens the bonds between caregivers and children. I love their mission to raise a future generation of children to be authentic, purposeful, and to have a foundation of mental wellness throughout their development of their life and into adulthood. You can get a 10% discount by going to themindsettapestry.co and using the code Brittney10. That's BRITTNEY10 at checkout. So go ahead and head on over to the Mindset Tapestry and get your 10% off today by using the code Brittney10.
I think learning to value and respect someone that at some level you were put on this earth with and tied to. There wasn't much choice necessarily. You do have a choice now. But it's your sibling. Here we go. You got to figure it out. And learning to value and respect and protect that relationship is just an invaluable lesson. But I think it just has healthy connotations for the rest. And so I think sorry. I think nothing.
Well, I was going to say what you have to do as parents is you're going to have to lead this. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to lead the avenue of want to protect and prioritize in our relationship, which looks like when there's confrontation between the kids, we have different tools. We have the referee tool, which I haven't really gotten to use very much, which is I will referee to make sure there's no blood. So you hash it out and I'll stand right here and I charge $20 a minute and I accept cash and hard labor and toys. So I'm going to start the timer, ready, set, go. And they just look at you like you're crazy, like $20 a minute to what? To make sure I don't punch them? That's dumb. Often they walk away. I think is knowing how to ask really good questions is when we're trying to get to the root of why there keeps having conflict over this one issue.
Yeah.
We've got to be great leaders, and how do we ask good questions to help them figure out what it is that's going on and what they need. Just dismissing this relationship or saying, hey, knock it off, give that back to your sister. Or what did we say? We told you 10 minutes, now it's your sister's turn. And we just kind of diffuse the requirement to figure out what the need is.
Yeah. So we were having this conversation the other day preparing for this episode.
Literally, we were in our bedroom talking about it.
We were moving through and we got to this one and we're talking through it. And then we hear this noise. And there's some bickering. And some arguing. We're like, oh, we should ignore it. No, I'm kidding. I didn't say that.
Well, what happened is I went out there and
that's right.
Because I think one of the kids started and the other one was like mocking them back. So I went out and I was like, hey, what's going on, guys? I'm not sure what's happening. This doesn't sound very fun. And then the one that was calling names it was a joke. It was just a joke. I'm like, well, it definitely sounded like a joke up until I called your bluff, And but they were almost talking over me, trying to get me to be dismissive and go away. You heard that because I turned around and I looked at you, and then you were already getting up, like, okay, we're not doing that.
Tag me in.
Yeah, and then you went in there. It was great.
Which is great. I mean, this is the partnership we always talk about, and that's a great display of it. This is what we want to keep practicing and sharing with you. But I think what happened next is I just went in and asked some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how do you think his experiencing you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that feels? And they're arguing over who gets to use this toy right now and yada yada yada, the Switch. And it's fun for both of them. It's actually a place of connection for both of them because their friends are around that online, and it's great. But there's an experience taking place in how you're treating me, actually in both directions.
Mm-hmm.
And so through some questions, and then, hey, do you need my help? I have some ideas for you. We got down to how you approach this conversation and how you show up really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to be aware of that. And so questions, and then we drew it out. They 10 minutes later, they're downstairs, all over each other, goofing off on the couch,
right,
having fun. I'm like, this is the goal, is that a confrontation and a requirement to restore the connection doesn't have to last 2 weeks or 2 days or 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's, hey, let's get it, and then keep the goal. And I just love when I got to watch them practice this in front of us. Like, good job, guys.
Well, the ultimate goal is that our conflict and confrontation will lead us closer to connection.
Mm-hmm.
That as parents and leaders in the home of these relationships are so incredibly important to us. And we often say that a disconnect is the biggest problem in our home. So that means all the different relationships in our house. It doesn't just mean you and I.
Yep.
It doesn't just mean me and one of the kids. It's them being disconnected, or you and them, or as soon as that starts to happen, it's kind of like we throw a flag up in the air, like, all right, the world stops for this.
Yeah. Because
if we ignore this problem, it becomes like, I just read this email from James Clear. He's the Atomic Habit guy. And he says, muddy puddles or leaky roofs. And he said, a muddy puddle, sometimes I don't need to address it. Like it'll eventually dry itself up, and it's not worth me walking through and making a mess of my shoe, and it'll just get it more muddy. And so it's really something that will work itself out. A roof problem is if I ignore this leaky roof, it will become a huge problem. Yep. And that's what it feels like with not addressing the disrespect level and disconnect in your home. You can't act like it's a muddy puddle. It is a leaky roof.
Yep.
It will build and build. So when you have a 5 and 7-year-old that don't know how to put on display respect in their relationship, and then they grow up and now we're 7 and 10, and now we're 10 and 13, and we just keep getting older and older. There's just mound after mound of all I know is that there's disconnect and disrespect I've never been required something different.
Yep.
So when they're teenagers and they're extremely hurtful towards each other, and you're wondering how we got here, well, it was a leaky roof problem. So that's the big thing for parents I want you to think about is I look at sibling relationships and the disrespect that we let happen in those relationships as a leaky roof problem. It can cause mold, massive amount of damage. It ruins the structure of your home. It does not produce anything of great value if you ignore it.
And it costs this much down here. And it costs this much
Ignored.
way down here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think it's such a big piece. And this whole family, just like you said, is confrontation is often the pathway to solve the disconnection. Is it requires a face-to-face.
Yeah.
Which is what confrontation means. It requires an honest conversation, me looking in your eyes, me hearing your heart, and actually understanding how I'm impacting you and me, and then solving the problem together. And going, okay, I got some good information today. I can adjust to that. And when the response is, I'm not going to adjust to that over and over again, that's damaging.
Yeah. Yeah, I go back to why settle for the world's description of how siblings relationships should be.
Yeah.
I've always been influenced by Brene Brown's perspective on siblings know the most intimate spaces of each other's lives.
All of it.
They know when they got dumped. They know when they failed that big test. They, something else happened before anyone else, especially if it happens in your home. And if we don't promote high levels of respect, then we're not going to get high levels of respect. If we don't prioritize that, the fact that disconnect is the longest we could ever have, then we will just learn to live in dysfunction and disconnection. We will just it'll become part of our normal. Yeah. And the culture that we're really chasing after and wanting to create just kind of disappears. So I would say that's the biggest thing is the standard keeper. You've got to be the one that says, this is how we talk to each other. This is how we handle conflict. This is how we handle problems. We make space for everyone's needs, but we stop and do it.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think it's just one more encouragement, and lots of these episodes feel like we're just encouraging you to go grow. Go keep growing. Don't stop growing. It's one of the core values of Loving on Purpose. We're always growing. And I think in our families, as couples, as parents, it's just a requirement. Kids see that. They're going to follow that. So keep growing in this area. Find some communication tools. Practice questions, because that's going to set you up to actually lead your children, your spouse, people in your home through successful confrontation, deeper connection. So, welcome to the party. We're doing this.
Have fun growing.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.